One clean shot. On his wedding day, muffled by the pillow pressed against his chest, Park Jin-woo's body jerked once, then went still. Blood spread across white silk sheets like spilled wine, dark, thick, irreversible. In the security room 3 floors down, CCTV footage played on a loop. Timestamp, 23:42. A woman in white sleep clothes entered the frame, moving down the hallway toward the master bedroom. Her face angled away from the camera. She was alone. 23:47. She exited.
Busan had held its breath under a gray sky earlier that day. The district office squatted on a corner in Seomyeon, a bureaucratic building that processed marriages and deaths with the same tired indifference. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A clerk ate a ramyeon at her desk. An elderly couple argued about pension paperwork at the main counter. And in a private room on the second floor, Melissa Ada signed her life away. The room was small, windowless. A single desk, 2 chairs, a Korean flag in the corner that looked older than she was. Across from her sat Park Jin-woo, 29, sharp-featured, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire year of medical school tuition. He watched her sign the marriage certificate with the same expression someone might use while reviewing quarterly earnings. Detached, clinical, bored. Manager Choi stood by the door like a monument carved from granite, hands folded, eyes unblinking. Melissa's pen moved across the paper. Her handwriting looked steady, that was good. She'd practiced staying steady. 3 signatures, Park Melissa Ada. Park Melissa Ada, Park Melissa Ada. Each one felt like signing away another piece of herself. Park Jin-woo countersigned without ceremony, then stood and buttoned his jacket with mechanical precision. "We're done here. Manager Choi will take you to get ready for the ceremony." "Ceremony?" Melissa's voice came out quieter than she intended. "It's still a wedding, Miss Ada." His English was perfect, American accented, cold. "My family expects certain formalities." He left without looking back. Manager Choi gestured toward the door, this way. The ceremony happened 2 hours later in a hotel ballroom in Haeundae. The space could have held 200 people but contained maybe 20, all scattered across chairs like chess pieces on an oversized board, all Park family. All watching Melissa walk down the aisle in a cream silk handbag that wasn't hers, had never been hers, would never be hers. An older woman had dressed her in a hotel room an hour before, efficient hands pinning and smoothing and adjusting until Melissa looked like someone else entirely. Someone who belonged in a Park family wedding. The woman never spoke, never made eye contact, just worked in silence and left when she was done. Now Melissa stood at the front of the room beside Park Jin-woo, while an officiant read from a script that sounded more like a business contract than a marriage vow. "Do you take this man?" "I do." Jin-woo's voice was flat. "And do you take this man?" "I do." Melissa's voice didn't shake. Small victory. Rings were exchanged. Hers was platinum and too loose, sliding around her finger like it was trying to escape. No kiss. No applause. Just the rustle of expensive fabric as people shifted in their seats, already bored. Then it was over. A woman in black approached from the front row. Small, maybe 5'2", but carrying herself like she was 7 feet tall. Park Myong-ja. Jin-woo's mother. Her face was porcelain smooth, ageless in that way that required excellent doctors and better genetics. She stopped in front of Melissa and studied her the way someone might study a newly purchased appliance, checking for defects. "I am Park Myong-ja," she said in crisp Korean. "You will call me Mother." Melissa bowed deep. "Yes, Mother." Park Myong-ja reached out and adjusted Melissa's collar with 2 fingers. The gesture was almost tender, almost. "Tonight you will go to my son's residence. You will not embarrass this family. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." The smile was thin, sharp. "Welcome to the family, daughter." She turned and walked away, Hanbok whispering against the floor like a warning. The apartment was a glass cage in the sky. 42nd floor of a building in Centum City. All angles and chrome and floor-to-ceiling windows that turned Busan into a glittering sprawl below. Manager Choi used a keycard to access the private elevator. They rode up in silence. Melissa, Jin-woo, and the weight of what came next pressing down like atmospheric pressure. Melissa Ada counted floors, focused on numbers, didn't think about wedding nights, didn't think about what Jin-woo might expect, didn't think about the fact that she was now legally bound to a stranger who looked at her like she was an expense report. The elevator opened directly into the penthouse. Jin-woo walked in ahead of her, already loosening his tie. He went straight to the bar cart and poured something amber into crystal. Drank it in 2 swallows, poured another. Melissa stood in the entryway, still wearing the borrowed hanbok, still feeling like an actress who'd wandered onto the wrong set. "Your room is down the hall," Jinwoo said without looking at her. "Last door on the left. Your things have been moved." The relief was so sudden she almost stumbled. "My room?" He turned then, and something like amusement flickered across his face. "Did you think I wanted to consummate this? It's a business arrangement, Miss Ada. I have no interest in playing husband. Miss Ada, not Mrs. Park." The distinction was deliberate. "Thank you," she said quietly. "Don't thank me. Just stay out of my way." He drained his glass. "There's food in the kitchen if you're hungry. Help yourself." He walked past her toward the master bedroom, stopped at the threshold. "Welcome home, Mrs. Park." The words were acid, the door closed. Melissa stood alone in the penthouse, surrounded by glass and expensive furniture, and a view that cost more than her father's life was worth, and let herself take one shaking breath. Then she walked down the hall to her room. It was smaller than the master suite, but still larger than anywhere she'd ever lived. Her things were there, clothes unpacked and hung in the closet, textbooks arranged on shelves, laptop on the desk. Everything in its place, everything controlled. She changed out of the hanbok with trembling fingers, hung it carefully like it was evidence, put on a t-shirt and shorts that felt like armor compared to silk. Then she sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. 365 days. She could survive 365 days. She had to. 6 months earlier, a hospital room had smelled like bleach and failure. Melissa had sat beside her father's bed, holding his hand. It was all bone then. Papery skin stretched over knuckles that used to be strong. Samuel Ada had been a big man once. Tall, broad-shouldered, the kind of presence that filled a room. Cancer had eaten him from the inside out, left him small and gray and barely there. "Melissa." His voice had been a whisper. "Promise me something. Anything, Dad. Don't drop out." His grip had tightened with what little strength remained. "No matter what happens, you finish medical school. You become a doctor. Promise me." Her throat had been tight. "I promise," he'd smiled. It was the last smile she would ever see from him. "Good girl," he'd said. 20 minutes later, the monitors flatlined. Melissa held his hand until it went cold, until the nurses came and gently told her it was time to let go. She signed papers, made arrangements, moved through the motions like a ghost. She didn't know about the debt yet. That came later. 4 months after her father's death, they came to her dormitory on a Tuesday afternoon. 2 men in suits, polite and professional, asking if they could come in to discuss her father's outstanding obligations. Melissa let them in because she didn't know what else to do. She made tea, offered them seats at her small kitchen table. Manager Choi was the older one, 50-something, built like concrete. He laid out papers with the careful precision of a surgeon. Numbers, documentation, evidence. "Your father borrowed from multiple sources," he explained. "Small amounts initially, to cover medical expenses that insurance wouldn't pay. But small amounts accumulated, interest compounded, and debt doesn't die with the debtor." Melissa stared at the papers. The numbers swam. How much? 237 million won, including fees and interest to date. The room had tilted. "I don't have that kind of money." "We understand. That's why we're here to discuss alternative arrangements." "What kind of arrangements?" Manager Choi folded his hands on the table. "The Park family is prepared to forgive the entire debt. In exchange, you would enter into a contractual marriage with Park Jinwoo for a period of 1 year. At the end of that year, the marriage would be dissolved and you would be free." The words hadn't made sense at first. Marriage.contract. 1 year? You want me to marry a stranger to pay off my father's debt? Park Jinwoo is a respected member of one of Busan's most prominent families. You would be well cared for, and if I refuse? Manager Choi's expression hadn't changed. Then we would pursue collection through other means. Your father had a sister in Lagos. 2 nephews. Your mother's family in Enugu. They still run that fabric shop on Ogi Road, don't they? Ice had flooded her veins. You're threatening my family. We're offering you a choice, Miss Ada. 1 year of your life in exchange for everyone's safety. It seems like a reasonable trade. Melissa had looked at the papers, at the trap closing around her, at the evidence of her father's desperation laid out in black and white. "I need time to think. You have 24 hours. They left her. She didn't sleep that night. The next afternoon, she called the number on Manager Choi's business card and said yes. Now, lying in her new bed on her wedding night, Melissa stared at the ceiling. The penthouse was quiet except for the distant hum of the city below. Jinwoo had gone to his room hours ago. She'd heard his door close, heard the muffled sound of a phone conversation, heard silence after that. She counted days, 365. She could do this. She'd survived her father's death. Survived the debt collectors. Survived signing her life away. This was just survival in a different form. The thing about survival, her father used to say, was that it required flexibility. You had to be water, taking the shape of whatever container held you, flowing into the cracks, finding a way through. Rigid things broke, water endured. So she would be water. She would flow through this year and come out the other side. She almost believed it. Around 11, she heard movement in the penthouse. Jinwoo's door opening. Footsteps in the hallway. The clink of ice in a glass. Then his door closing again. Silence returned. Melissa closed her eyes and tried to sleep. Voices woke her at 11:30. Not loud but urgent, angry, coming from somewhere else in the penthouse. She sat up, heart suddenly hammering. She shouldn't investigate, should mind her own business, should stay in her room and pretend she heard nothing. But the voices grew louder. Sharp.1 was definitely Jinwoo. The other was deeper, colder, unfamiliar. Don't care what Mother agreed to. It's done. The contract is signed. Contracts can be undone. She's a liability, a crash, something breaking, then shouting. A man's voice raised in anger, then nothing. Silence so sudden and complete it felt wrong. Melissa's medical training overrode her fear. Someone might be hurt. She got out of bed, moved to her door, opened it carefully. The hallway was dark except for a sliver of light beneath Jinwoo's door. She crept closer, pulse racing. "Jinwoo?" she called softly. No answer. Her hand found the door handle. It wasn't locked. She pushed it open. Jinwoo's room was chaos. Lamp overturned on the floor. Papers scattered everywhere. A drinking glass shattered near the wall. And on the bed, partially covered by silk sheets, was Jinwoo. He lay on his back, one arm hanging off the edge. His white shirt was stained dark across the chest. So much blood, soaking into expensive fabric, pooling on the sheets beneath him. Melissa's training kicked in. She rushed forward, fingers going automatically to his neck to check for a pulse, even though she could already see the fixed, dilated pupils. The glassy stare, the absolute stillness of death. No pulse. Her hand came away wet. That's when she saw it, the small, neat hole in his chest. Just below the sternum entry wound, and beneath him, soaking into the mattress, the exit wound that had done the real damage. He'd been shot. Park Jin-woo, her husband of 8 hours, was dead. Melissa stumbled backward, hand flying to her mouth. Her mind raced, call for help. Check the scene, look for the weapon, do something. The soft ding of the elevator made her freeze. Someone was coming up, panic seized her. She was standing over a dead body, blood on her hands. This looked bad, she ran. Out of Jin-woo's room, down the hallway toward her own room. She had to wash off the blood, had to think, The elevator doors opened. Footsteps fast, purposeful, moving through the living room. Melissa made it to her room, closed the door as quietly as possible, stood there with her back pressed against it, heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She heard voices in the hallway. Multiple people, moving toward Jin-woo's room. Then a shout, urgent. Korean words she couldn't quite catch. More footsteps, running this time. Melissa looked down at her hands, at the blood drying on her fingers, at the evidence that would condemn her. She moved to her small bathroom, turned on the water, scrubbed her hands until they were raw, watched Jin-woo's blood swirl down the drain. Then she changed her shirt, threw the blood-stained one in the hamper, tried to control her breathing, tried to think she'd found him. That was all. She'd heard something, gone to check, found him dead. That was the truth. She just had to tell them the truth. A knock on her door made her jump. "Mrs. Park," a man's voice, deep cold. "Open the door." Melissa's hand shook as she reached for the handle. The door swung open. A man stood in the hallway. Tall, broad-shouldered, maybe 32 or 33. He had Jin-woo's sharp features, but there was something different in the way he carried himself. Looser, more dangerous. He wore all black. His eyes were dark and unreadable. Behind him stood 3 men in suits, security, all watching her with expressions that gave away nothing. "Park Tae-hyun," the man said, as if introducing himself at a dinner party. "Jin-woo's older brother." Melissa's voice came out as a whisper. "I found him, I heard something, and I went to check, and he was... Save it." Tae-hyun's voice was flat. "Get dressed, come with us." "I didn't... now." 2 of the security guards stepped forward, not touching her yet, but the threat was clear. Melissa grabbed a sweatshirt from her closet, pulled it on with shaking hands. They led her out of her room, down the hallway, past Jinwoo's room where more people in suits were photographing everything, documenting the scene. They took her to a small room at the far end of the penthouse. No windows, a table, 2 chairs, a lock on the outside of the door. Taehyun gestured to one of the chairs. "Sit." She sat. The guards left. Taehyun remained, studying her with those unreadable eyes. "Tell me what happened," he said. So she did. Told him about hearing voices, about going to check, about finding Jinwoo's body, all of it. Taehyun listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "Show her," he said to someone outside the door. One of the guards entered carrying a tablet. He set it on the table and pulled up security footage. The screen showed the hallway outside Jinwoo's room. Timestamp 2342 empty corridor. Then a figure entered the frame. Melissa, in her sleep clothes, moving toward Jinwoo's door. The angle didn't show her face clearly, but it was obviously her. She opened the door, entered. 2347. She exited, alone, hands at her sides. No one else entered. No one else left. "That's impossible," Melissa whispered. "There was someone else. I heard 2 people arguing." The microphones didn't pick up any conversation. Then they were speaking quietly, or the system malfunctioned, or you're lying. Taehyun leaned forward. "This footage shows you entering my brother's room at 11:42 p.m. You exited at 11:47. In those 5 minutes, Jinwoo was shot and killed, and the security system shows no one else entering or leaving. Someone could have been in there already, before I arrived. The bedroom has motion sensors. They logged your entry as the first movement in that room since 10:47 p.m., when Jinwoo went to bed. The trap was closing. Melissa could feel it tightening around her throat. "I didn't kill him," she said. "Then who did?" "I don't know. But I heard voices, 2 people, arguing." Taehyun studied her for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the door. "You'll stay here until we figure out what to do with you. You can't just lock me up. I have rights. You have what I decide you have." He looked back at her. "You married into this family, Mrs. Park. That means you're subject to our rules, our justice. And right now, every piece of evidence says you murdered my brother. I didn't. We'll see." He opened the door. "Someone will bring you water. Don't bother trying the door. It locks from the outside." He left. The lock clicked into place. Melissa sat alone in the small room and stared at her hands, at the places where Jinwoo's blood had been, at the wedding ring that was still too loose on her finger. Her husband of 8 hours was dead, and everyone thought she'd killed him. She didn't know how long she sat there. Time became meaningless. Could have been an hour. Could have been 10 minutes. The lock clicked. The door opened. Park Myung-ja entered like a queen entering a throne room. Back straight, head high, black hanbok rustling softly. No makeup, no jewelry, just raw, undiluted authority. "Stand up," she said. Melissa stood. Park Myung-ja circled her slowly, examining her like a specimen under glass. "Did you kill my son?" "No." "Look at me when you answer." Melissa met her eyes. "No, mother, I didn't kill Jinwoo." Park Myung-ja stared at her for a long moment. Then she nodded once. "It doesn't matter what you did or didn't do. What matters is what it looks like. And right now, it looks like you murdered him. The security footage shows you entering his room and leaving it during the time he was killed. Which means you're either guilty or you're unlucky." Park Myung-ja moved to the wall, examined it like it was interesting. "Either way, you're a problem. I didn't do this. I know." Park Myung-ja turned back to her. "I know you didn't. Jinwoo had enemies. Real enemies. People who wanted him dead. And someone used your wedding night to do it. Very clever, really. Kill him when the only other person in the penthouse is the new bride. The bride who came from nothing. The bride who was forced into this marriage against her will." Melissa's breath caught. "You believe me?" "It doesn't matter what I believe. What matters is what the family believes. What the evidence shows." Park Myung-ja's smile was cold. "And we can't have a scandal. We can't have police investigating. We can't have anyone looking too closely at Park family business. Do you understand?" "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're going to live, Mrs. Park. But there are conditions." Melissa's stomach dropped. "What conditions?" "You will remarry into the family. You will take Jinwoo's place, maintain the appearance of family unity, preserve our honor, and you will stay quiet while we find out who really killed my son." The room tilted. "Remarry? To who?" Park Myung-ja's expression didn't change. "To Taehyun, he's the eldest. He should have married first anyway. This corrects the order. You want me to marry the man who thinks I murdered his brother?" I want you to survive long enough to prove you're innocent. This is how you do it. Park Myung-ja moved toward the door. The ceremony will be private, tomorrow afternoon. You'll wear black, out of respect for Jinwoo, and you will not refuse. And if I do? Park Myung-ja paused at the threshold, looked back with eyes like ice. Then we'll assume you're guilty, and we'll handle you the way we handle all threats to this family. She left, the lock clicked. Melissa sank into the chair and stared at the wall. Her husband of 8 hours was dead. By tomorrow, she'd be married to his brother. The brother who thought she was a killer. The brother who'd promised to keep her alive only long enough to make her confess. She closed her eyes and tried to count days again.